go.
It's happening right now.
They folded down. At least 1,500 exotic fish are dead.
The actual collapse of the world's third largest suspension bridge.
It was 1981 in Kansas City.
Welcome to Wow Effect. In today's episode, we're diving into the most costly construction blunders that have left both blueprints and bank accounts in shambles. From leaning luxury towers in San Francisco to deadly heat rays in London, these tales of disaster remind us that even the grandest designs can crumble under pressure. As we explore these engineering misfortunes, join us on this eye-opening journey. It's bound to leave you both amazed and appalled. If you enjoy these incredible stories, don't forget to like and subscribe to Wow Effect for more fascinating content. That being said, let's get started. Let's talk about the Millennium Tower, San Francisco's very own leaning luxury nightmare. This 58-story monument to bad engineering has been doing two things exceptionally well since 2009, housing the ultra-rich and slowly sinking into oblivion.
Trouble for the troubled Millennium Tower. It's been 6 months since the luxury high-rise was fully supported to stop it from sinking and leaning.
We're not talking about minor settling here. This $350 million tower has dropped a full 18 inches into the soft baked clay beneath it, while developing a concerning 14-inch westward lean. That's right, San Francisco's posh residents are literally living in a slow-motion disaster movie. The root cause? Somebody thought it would be brilliant to build a massive concrete skyscraper on what's essentially geological pudding. Now taxpayers and residents are footing the bill for a $100 million fix that involves hammering 52 enormous steel piles 250 feet down to bedrock.
No signs of the 3-year effort to stabilize the Millennium Tower by supporting two sides with 18 piles sunk to bedrock.
While engineers scramble to stabilize this architectural embarrassment, the surrounding sidewalks are already cracking under the pressure. The irony of a luxury tower literally bringing down the neighborhood isn't lost on anyone. But this isn't just an engineering failure. It's a perfect metaphor for San Francisco's housing crisis. Widely recognized as a triumph of aesthetics and an emblem of a young, forward-thinking Australia, Sydney Opera House is in fact an object lesson in construction failure. In 1957, the Australian government held a contest to design a future national opera house. Winner Yam Utsan submitted his now iconic sail-like design, which won over the judges.
I never demanded anything. I was very, very lucky to get that job, and I met marvelous people.
But little actual planning had gone into his pitch. This situation wasn't helped by the hasty construction schedule and the fact that the government swiftly decided it wanted 4 theaters rather than the initial 2 inside the same shaped structure. Without a single project manager in charge and a plan that evolved haphazardly over time, the budget spiraled. It should have taken 4 years and 102 million Australian dollars. Their mistake?
It took Arup's firm 7 years, 350,000 man-hours, and at different times 200 engineers to do all the work before the final structure emerged.
Simple old-fashioned rubbish planning. This is Aon Center. One heyday, the second tallest building on Earth, initially christened the Amico Building, which remains to this day an elegant expression of mid-century modernism. Architect Edward Darrell Stone, in what can only be described as an outrageous flex, decided to clothe his Grant Park masterpiece in Italian Carrara marble.
Well, Rob and Eric, it looks like the Aon Center could be the next Chicago landmark to add an observation deck.
A material favored by classical artisans since antiquity. The problem? Michelangelo wasn't building 83-story skyscrapers. The Windy City's dramatic temperature fluctuations caused the marble cladding to crack and warp. And when an entire panel broke off and crashed onto the rooftop of the neighboring Prudential Center, well, it was high time for an $80 million granite reclad. At least they probably had insurance. The Leaning Tower of Pisa is the world's most glorified construction mistake. What started as a simple bell tower project in 1173 quickly turned into a comedy of errors when builders realized, oops, the ground was about as stable as a bowl of pudding. By the time they hit the third floor, the whole thing was already tilting like a drunk tourist after too much Chianti. The genius move? A 3-meter deep foundation for an 8-story stone tower. That's like building a sandcastle at high tide and being shocked when it washes away. Construction halted for nearly a century. Thanks, politics, which ironically saved the tower by letting the soil settle. When work finally resumed, engineers just rolled with it, adding more floors while the lean grew more dramatic. By 1372, Pisa had itself a world-class engineering blunder and an instant tourist attraction. Centuries passed, the tilt worsened, and countless experts tried to fix it, until the 1990s, when modern engineers finally stabilized it.
And the Leaning Tower of Pisa, one of the most popular landmarks in the world, is now a stable monument. The tower celebrating its 850th birthday by actually stabilizing itself.
Mostly. The lesson? Sometimes the best landmarks aren't built. They're failed so spectacularly that the world can't look away. Today, millions of visitors flock to see what is essentially medieval Italy's version of hold my beer architecture. Jobbing construction workers tasked with putting up what was at the time the third longest suspension bridge in the world could already see which way the wind was blowing. That's why they nicknamed the Tacoma Narrows Bridge in Washington State Galloping Gertie, even before it was finished. Some bright spark reckoned it would be a great idea to use cheap plate girders underneath the roadbed. After a rocky start, the bridge eventually just collapsed after 4 months and 7 days in a modest 40-mile-an-hour wind.
The actual collapse of the world's third largest suspension bridge.
The cost? Roughly $6 million, which in today's money, after inflation, works out not far off $1 billion. When the construction of the innovative curvy skyscraper at 20 French Church Street by the River Thames in London was completed in 2014, locals jokingly referred to it as the pint glass. Engineers likely needed a stiff drink when they realized that the building's massive concave facade was focusing beams of summer sunlight like a molten death ray onto the busy pavement below. In fact, a hapless local's luxury car was partially melted.
Anything in the direct glare of the reflection can literally go up in smoke. It damaged this car parked nearby,
leading to an embarrassing payout and the swift installation of a large sunscreen, which cost developers a staggering $10 million. In the early hours of June 27, 2009, residents of Shanghai's Minhang district awoke to an almighty crash. Lotus Riverside Building 7, a 13-story building, part of an 11-building apartment complex that was in the final stages of completion, had toppled over, killing one Zhao Deacon, a 21-year-old construction worker.
The contractor and supervising firm are to be blamed for the collapse of a 13-story apartment block in Shanghai on June 27.
Investigators figured out that a large quantity of earth excavated to build an underground garage was foolishly dumped into a nearby creek. That caused the creek to divert underground, sweeping away building number 7's foundations. The estimated cost to the developer of this lackadaisical practice? $30 million, and half a dozen jail terms for those responsible. The German people enjoy a reputation for technical efficiency, or at least they did until a fairly humdrum Brandenburg Airport City Airport project that should have taken a couple of years and cost 2.5 billion euros opened a decade later to the tune of 7 billion euros. What went wrong? All sorts. For instance, it emerged 2 years into the project that Alfred Di Mauro, chief planner for BER's fire protection system, was never actually qualified to be an engineer. Everyone thought I was an engineer, Di Mauro sheepishly told the DPA news agency. I just didn't contradict them. Whereupon Fire Chief Di Mauro was quite rightly fired. There was also an issue around roughly €500,000 of alleged bribes paid to corrupt officials, allegations of price fixing, and poor planning that led to the inadequate fire safety setup.
Wrong layering of 90 kilometers of cables, bankruptcies of construction firms, and even corruption charges against former managers.
Not to mention inadequate check-in and baggage handling facilities for the airport's expected traffic. Turns out the Germans were just winging it. The luxurious hotel in Las Vegas is no stranger to costly, regrettable errors. But rarely has an error been so lavish as the Harmon Hotel. Designed by a prestigious team at Foster & Partners Architects, the boutique hotel was initially slated to loom fully 47 stories over the world-famous Strip. However, building inspectors halted the project after just 26 stories had been erected, noting that rebar reinforcements in the concrete had been inadequately installed.
They were the glass supplier for Harmon, the Harmon building right here.
This meant the upper condo element was abandoned, despite some 88 excited rich punters putting deposits down. Eventually, Vegas authorities demanded the building be pulled down altogether, not with a wrecking ball, but painstakingly floor by floor. The cost of building, up to this point, had been an estimated $173 million. What happens in Vegas doesn't always stay in Vegas, it turns out. In 2011, construction began on the second phase of the so-called Liyang Star City in Kunming, China. They built 19 high-rise buildings on 4 large sites to house residential and office space. Just a year after construction began, the project changed hands and the new company managed to complete the first 4 high-rises. But construction on the remaining buildings was halted in 2013 due to financial concerns. The other 15 buildings topped out, but weren't completely finished. Over the years, they started to get flooded with rainwater in the basements, leading to foundation damage that was beyond repair. In December 2020, another real estate company bought the property and project rights for around $150 million. They quickly found that the 8-year-old buildings would no longer meet the demands of a changing real estate market, and they decided to demolish the unused buildings. Demolition crews placed over 4 tons of explosives, and measures were put in place to make demolition as safe as possible. Finally, in August 2021, the planned demolition was initiated.
3, 2, 1, fire.
After years of planning and construction, they came down in 45 seconds, reportedly the largest at-once demolition in China. New Orleans Hard Rock Hotel was supposed to be a glittering addition to the city's skyline, a luxury high-rise with rooftop cocktails and panoramic views. Instead, it became a cautionary tale about what happens when developers value budgets over basic physics. As construction neared completion in 2019, workers reported unsettling creaks and vibrations. Then, on October 12, without warning, the upper floors pancaked in a cloud of dust and twisted steel.
And there we go.
Wow. It's happening right now.
They folded down. Oh, one did not go as planned.
3 workers never made it home. Dozens more narrowly escaped. The smoking gun? A reckless decision to use thinner, cheaper steel beams on critical upper floors. A cost-cutting move that saved pennies but cost lives. These flimsy supports buckled under the building's own weight, triggering a chain reaction collapse. Investigations revealed an even uglier truth. This wasn't just one bad call. The entire project suffered from lax oversight, rushed timelines, and a culture that prioritized speed over safety. Workers had voiced concerns for months, concerns that were ignored until it was too late. Now the half-demolished skeleton still looms over Canal Street, a $100 million monument to corporate negligence. Its legacy? Tighter construction regulations across New Orleans, and a painful reminder: when you build cheap, you risk building deadly. More than 30 countries use nuclear power for electricity, with Finland getting about 30% of its power from nuclear sources. In 2005, the Finnish government decided to build more reactors to reduce coal use, including a modern 3rd unit at the Olkiluoto nuclear power plant that would boost production by nearly 60%. Construction began in 2005 on what was the first nuclear reactor built by a Western country in 15 years. From the start, the project was plagued with delays. Although initially promised for 2010, it remains under construction today. The main buildings were completed early, but nuclear components took years to install.
Europe's newest reactor, the first for 25 years, opened on Olkiluoto Island on the west coast of Finland this time last year.
Business disputes, supply chain issues, and scheduling delays have kept the project in limbo for 12 years and around $8 billion over budget. Experts cite multiple problems. Experienced builders had left the industry during the 15-year gap since the last reactor construction. Contractors weren't prepared for nuclear safety standards. Concrete foundations had to be redone. Metal parts weren't properly forged, and welders weren't properly trained. Planning and documentation issues also caused years of delays. TVO has finally promised that Olkiluoto 3 will open in February 2022. The original $11 billion, nearly 4 times the original price. In 1975, Sweden identified problems with its rail system, as sections of the west coastline couldn't handle increasing traffic. A massive upgrade project was announced, including replacing the single-track railway on Hallandsås Ridge.
Holland-Oist Live Beam Railway Project. And it's being presented, and if I say this name correctly, it's a miracle. If I don't, he'll come and correct me.
A bottleneck between Gothenburg and Copenhagen. Construction on the Hallandsås Tunnel began in 1992 with a planned 3-year completion. Problems began immediately. Groundwater seeped from the rock in larger volumes than expected. The soft rock broke the first drill, and traditional drilling caused more leaks. These issues bankrupted the original contractor. The new contractors used poisonous sealing compound without proper precautions, killing livestock and fish and making workers sick. Facing criminal charges, construction halted in 1997 with only 3 kilometers of the 8-kilometer tunnel drilled. Construction restarted 8 years later with new drilling machines, though poor bedrock quality caused further delays. The tunnel was finally completed in 2015, 23 years after starting. Costs ballooned from 1 billion to 10.5 billion Swedish kroner, 10 times the original estimate. Stuttgart 21 is a giant railway megaproject in Germany and one of the most interesting construction sites in the country.
The brave new world of high-speed trains. Deutsche Bahn's vision of the future features
as it requires rotating an entire train station by 90 degrees. Previously a terminus station where trains had to reverse to exit, the redesign transforms it into a transit station that will become part of a continuous 1,500-kilometer high-speed rail line connecting Paris, Stuttgart, Munich, Vienna, and Bratislava. When construction began in 2010, the project was budgeted at $5.4 billion, with a 2019 completion date. However, it has failed spectacularly on both counts. The opening is now expected in late 2025, 6 years late. Due to protests, environmental activism, and complex tunnel construction challenges. Nearly 60 kilometers, 37 miles of tunnels, must be built through problematic swelling soil that expands when wet, potentially requiring repeated repairs. In 2017, the project faced an unusual delay when thousands of protected lizards had to be relocated at costs reaching $18 million to the budget. Current estimates suggest final costs could reach $12 billion, more than double the original budget. The 280-meter Citigroup Center in Midtown Manhattan stands on 4 34-meter foundation pillars. In 1978, a chilling discovery was made. Princeton student Diane Hartley's calculations revealed the building could collapse in certain wind conditions that engineers hadn't properly accounted for. Civil engineer William Le Mesurier confirmed the terrifying truth. The building could topple in winds occurring every 55 years on average, or every 16 years if the mass damper failed during a power outage. This risk was discovered just as Hurricane Ella approached New York. In secret nighttime operations over 3 months, to avoid public panic, crews welded steel plates to reinforce the structure. The $100+ million repair was completed just in time. though the near disaster remained secret until a 1995 New Yorker article revealed how close Manhattan came to a potential skyscraper domino effect. Saudi Arabia's Jeddah Tower, originally Kingdom Tower, was designed to make history as the world's first kilometer-high skyscraper. Equivalent to 2.5 Empire State Buildings stacked together. Part of the country's economic diversification plan, construction began in 2013 for a planned 2018 opening. The project stalled in 2017 when key investors, including Prince Al-Walid bin Talal, were imprisoned during a government purge. Work stopped with only one-third, 252 meters completed. COVID-19 further delayed any restart, leaving the $1.2 billion project in indefinite limbo as a towering concrete stump. In 2009, Shanghai's modern Lotus Riverside complex became the site of one of history's most dramatic construction failures, when Building 7 toppled over like a domino. The 13-story high-rise collapsed due to improper excavation for an underground garage that weakened its foundation, compounded by heavy rains. Shockingly, no natural disaster caused this failure, just poor construction practices and human error. Remarkably,
the contractor and supervising firm are to be blamed for the collapse of a 13-story apartment block in Shanghai on June 27th.
The building remained largely intact as it fell, highlighting how rapid urban development can lead to catastrophic oversights when safety is compromised for speed. Now, the most horrifying engineering failure in U.S. history, the 1981 Hyatt Regency disaster in Kansas City. This wasn't just a building collapse. It was a preventable catastrophe that unfolded in seconds.
It was 1981 in Kansas City. A tragedy like none this city.
Turning a glamorous hotel atrium into a death trap. It was a packed Friday night, a buzzing dance event, and two suspended walkways, architectural marvels meant to awe guests, suddenly pancaking onto the crowded lobby below. 114 people dead, over 200 were injured, and all because of a single bad design change that nobody caught in time. The sad part is that the original blueprints were fine. The walkways were supposed to hang from the ceiling with one continuous set of rods, strong, stable, and properly load-bearing. But somewhere along the way, some genius decided to split the design into two separate rod systems, one for the second-floor walkway, one for the fourth. That small tweak doubled the stress on the connections, and when those overloaded joints gave away, the result was pure nightmare fuel. Steel, concrete, and bodies crashing down in a matter of seconds. The worst part? This wasn't some freak accident. It was bad engineering, bad oversight, and a chilling reminder that cutting corners can have deadly consequences. Today, the Hyatt Regency collapse remains a grim case study in why you never mess with structural integrity, because when you do, people pay the price. Berlin's spectacular, record-breaking aquarium turned into a catastrophic failure overnight. This 82-foot-tall cylindrical marvel wasn't just an aquarium, it was an engineering showpiece, holding 1,500 tropical fish in its massive acrylic tank and featuring a breathtaking elevator ride straight through its center. For years, it stood as a glittering symbol of Berlin's innovative architecture, wowing tourists and locals alike at the Radisson Blu Hotel. Then came December 2022. Without warning, the entire structure exploded like a giant water balloon.
At least 1,500 exotic fish are dead after the world's largest freestanding aquarium burst in Berlin.
Millions of liters came crashing down in a devastating flood that wrecked the hotel lobby and surrounding areas. The shocking part? This wasn't caused by some external disaster. No earthquake, no terrorist attack. The aquadome literally destroyed itself from the inside out. Here's the terrifying truth. Those gorgeous acrylic walls had been silently developing microscopic cracks for years. Temperature changes and the constant pressure of all that water slowly turned this engineering marvel into a ticking time bomb. By the time anyone noticed, it was too late. The structural integrity had been compromised beyond saving. The aftermath was heartbreaking. hundreds of fish dead, millions in damages, and some serious questions about whether we should be building these massive acrylic structures at all. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. When you combine cutting-edge design with unforgiving physics, sometimes the physics win. Eastern span replacement of the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge. The Bay Bridge carries over 27 million vehicles annually between Yerba Buena Island and Oakland. After the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake damaged the bridge, officials decided retrofitting would be too expensive and held a design contest for replacement. It took a decade to agree on a self-anchored suspension bridge design, whose complexity proved problematic. Stability rods broke repeatedly, guardrails were prone to corrosion, deck sections were misaligned, and welding quality was poor, all requiring expensive fixes. The Eastern Span took 11 years to build and became California's most expensive infrastructure project, until the high-speed rail project. Estimated at $7 billion by 2019, 7 times the initial bid. Let's talk about the Vasa, Sweden's pride of the Navy, that lasted all of 20 minutes before becoming history's most expensive submarine.
In Stockholm, urgent work is underway to save the 17th century warship Vasa.
Commissioned by King Gustavus Adolphus in 1628, this was meant to be the ultimate flex of Swedish naval power. A floating fortress packed with 64 bronze cannons and ornate carvings fit for a king. But there was just one problem. The damn thing couldn't float properly. On its maiden voyage, before it could even clear Stockholm's harbor, a light breeze turned this unsinkable warship into the world's most embarrassing maritime disaster. The Vasa heeled over like a drunk sailor and sank in full view of the horrified crowds who had come to celebrate its launch. The autopsy revealed an engineering comedy of errors. It was a top-heavy design with too many fancy carvings and cannons up top, and it's nowhere near enough ballast to keep it stable. Design changes were made mid-construction because the king wanted more guns. They also made multiple stability tests and failed, but they did them anyway. For 333 years, the Vasa sat perfectly preserved in the Baltic mud, nature's way of preserving Sweden's shame. When they finally raised it in 1961, it became the world's best preserved 17th century ship and the ultimate museum exhibit on how not to build a warship. Today, the Vasa Museum stands as a $200 million monument. In 1970, the Teton Dam, Idaho's infrastructure dream that turned into America's most expensive and avoidable water balloon pop. Built to control floods and irrigate farmland, this cutting-edge dam was basically a giant stack of dirt and rocks. Because what could go wrong with holding back 250,000 acre-feet of water using what amounted to a glorified sandcastle? Spoiler, everything. On June 5, 1976, the reservoir hit full capacity for the first time. Cue the leaks. First a trickle, then a gush, then a full-blown, oh my God, the dam is disintegrating panic. Within hours, the entire structure blew like a busted fire hydrant, unleashing a biblical flood that wiped out towns, drowned 11 people, and turned farmland into a mudslide. The cleanup cost? Billions. The cause? A perfect storm of hubris. Porous rock that soaked up water like a sponge, rushed construction, and engineers who apparently thought Mother Nature would just go easy on them.
But June 5th, 1976 was different. Tomorrow marks the anniversary of the Teton Dam collapse. Not a natural disaster, but a man-made one.
The real kicker? This wasn't some ancient engineering fluke. This was the 1970s, when we supposedly knew better. The Teton Dam didn't just fail. It became a case study in how not to build infrastructure, proving that even modern engineering can collapse literally under bad decisions. Today, its ruins serve as a soggy, expensive reminder. If you're going to play God with rivers, maybe don't cut corners. The Sampung disaster, a catastrophe that exposed a dark side of South Korea's economic miracle. this wasn't just a building collapse. It was a preventable tragedy forged by negligence, greed, and a blatant disregard for physics. Opened in 1987, as a symbol of Seoul's booming prosperity, the Sampoong department store was originally designed as a modest 4-story office block. But in the rush to capitalize on consumer demand, developers made a fatal pivot. They hacked out critical support columns to cram in an extra floor and slapped a massive AC unit on the roof, like stacking bricks on a house of cards. For months, the building screamed for help. Cracks spiderwebbed across walls. Floors groaned under the weight. Employees and shoppers alike reported eerie creaks and vibrations. Yet management's response? Business as usual. Profit margins mattered more than structural integrity. Then, on June 29, 1995, the inevitable happened. With a roar of crumbling concrete, the entire south wing pancaked during peak shopping hours. 52 people died. Nearly 1,000 were injured. Rescue workers clawed through debris for survivors as a nation watched in horror. Investigations revealed a chilling truth. This wasn't an accident. It was corporate manslaughter. The builders had ignored basic engineering principles. Inspectors turned a blind eye, and warnings were dismissed to avoid disrupting sales. The legacy? A wake-up call for South Korea's construction industry, and a grim lesson for the world. Cutting corners might save money up front, but the real cost is measured in lives. Today, the Sampoong collapse remains a harrowing case study in how not to chase progress. London's 20 French Church Street, affectionately dubbed the walkie-talkie for its bulbous shape, achieved instant infamy in 2014, but not for its architecture. This curvaceous skyscraper accidentally weaponized sunlight, becoming the world's most unintentional death ray. The building's concave glass facade, meant to dazzle, instead functioned like a giant magnifying glass, focusing sunlight with such intensity that it melted car parts like a blowtorch, scorched shop fronts, and cracked pavement. The created sidewalk hotspots reached a blistering 243 degrees Fahrenheit, 117 degrees Celsius.
To be here right now. It is the hottest I have ever felt in London. It's all because of that building beside me. Jim Watterson is a reporter on City AM. He's just cooking up some lunch here.
And earned the nickname Fryscraper from roasted Londoners. For months, the building's plaza became an urban frying pan where unsuspecting pedestrians could literally smell their own hair burning. The phenomenon was equal parts hilarious and terrifying. A perfect metaphor for how flashy design can backfire spectacularly when basic physics aren't considered. The fix? A 10 million pound brise soleil sunshade installation. Essentially, the architectural equivalent of slapping sunscreen on a sunburn. While the building remains a striking part of London's skyline, it stands as a permanent warning to architects. If your design can accidentally cook breakfast on the sidewalk, maybe go back to the drawing board. Fun fact, the reflected heat was so intense, it temporarily warped other building structures, making the walkie-talkie the only skyscraper that literally bent reality around it. The collapse of the Sangbu Bridge in Seoul, South Korea, on October 21, 1994, is a tragic reminder of the dangers of rapid urban development and neglected infrastructure. Built in 1979, the bridge was designed for 880,000 vehicles daily, but was carrying over 160,000 by the early 1990s, straining its structure. On the day of the collapse, a 48-meter section gave way during rush hour, sending vehicles, including a bus, into the Han River, and resulting in 32 deaths and 17 injuries. Just hours before, reports of visible cracks had emerged, but no action was taken. Investigations revealed faulty construction, poor welding, rusted pins, and inadequate maintenance as contributing factors. This disaster highlighted the risks of cutting corners in construction and led to significant reforms in South Korea's infrastructure regulations. Including stricter standards and more frequent inspections to ensure safety in future projects. On April 24, 2013, an 8-story building in Bangladesh crumbled to the ground in seconds, burying thousands of garment workers under tons of concrete and steel. The Rana Plaza collapse wasn't just an accident. It was a preventable tragedy fueled by greed, negligence, and a blatant disregard for human life. How did a building, packed with workers stitching clothes for major global brands, become a death trap? The answers expose the dark side of fast fashion and the cost of ignoring safety warnings. Rana Plaza, located near Dhaka, was never meant to be a factory. Designed for shops and offices, its structure couldn't handle the weight of heavy garment machinery. Yet, driven by profit, factory owners illegally added 4 extra floors, without permits, without proper materials, and without a care for the workers inside. The building was a ticking time bomb, sitting on unstable ground and held together by substandard construction. Just one day before the collapse, workers spotted deep cracks in the walls. Some refused to enter, fearing the worst. But under pressure to meet relentless production deadlines, factory owners ordered them back to work, dismissing their concerns. The next morning, at 8:57 a.m., the building gave way. In moments, floors pancaked onto each other, trapping thousands. When the dust settled, 1,134 people were dead, and over 2,500 were injured, most of them low-wage workers with no escape. In less than 12 seconds, an oceanfront condo tower crumbled into rubble, taking 98 lives with it. The catastrophic failure of Champlain Towers South in Surfside, Florida, wasn't just a disaster. It was a wake-up call. How did a seemingly stable high-rise, built to last, turn into one of the deadliest building collapses in U.S. history? The answer lies in a series of ignored warnings, hidden flaws, and a failure to act before it was too late. The building was completed in 1981. Champlain Towers South was once a symbol of luxury. Prime ocean views, sleek design, and a location that screamed prestige. But beneath its polished exterior, trouble was brewing. The building sat on reclaimed wetlands, an unstable foundation that caused gradual sinking over time. Worse yet, its steel-reinforced concrete, meant to ensure durability, was quietly being eaten away by corrosion. As early as 2018, engineers flagged major structural issues. Water seeping from the pool deck, rusting the steel reinforcements below. Corrosion weakens concrete like termites in wood, silently destroying its strength. Yet, critical repairs were delayed, deferred, or dismissed. The question isn't just why the building collapsed, it's why nobody stopped it. On June 24, 2021, at 1:22 a.m., the unthinkable happened. In a matter of seconds, the entire 12-story building pancaked to the ground. Families were buried in their sleep. Rescue teams scrambled for weeks. But for 98 victims, it was already too late. The speed of the collapse was horrifying. How could a modern structure fail so completely? This tragedy forced America to confront hard truths. Aging infrastructure is not only unsightly, but also deadly. Coastal buildings face unique risks, such as saltwater corrosion and sinking land. Inspections and maintenance must be prioritized, not treated as an afterthought. As we wrap up our exploration of these construction catastrophes, it's clear that even the most ambitious architectural dreams can take a disastrous turn. From the leaning towers of San Francisco to the molten rays of London, these cautionary tales remind us of the importance of careful planning and the expertise required in engineering. Let these stories serve as a reminder that every blueprint holds the potential for greatness or failure. If you found these tales as fascinating as we did, we invite you to like and subscribe to Wow Effect for more fascinating content on the world of construction and design. Thank you for joining us on this journey, and we look forward to sharing more incredible stories with you soon.